So I think we're at a good point in space-time where we could. That's that's a funny way of introducing, but it's true. It's true. Like it seems like it's just not commercial language. So like it just anyway. So um all right, so we're at a good point in space-time where we could start explaining economic models and stuff. Unfortunately, when it comes to the United States, and I discovered this a few years ago, our personnel power of economists is heavily concentrated in the Keynesian school of economics and stuff. Things basically leading to printing more money and then recirculating back into the system, which is fine given the cash supply. The cash supply, I think, only allots about $110,000 worth um, at one cycle, all at once, um, per person, because I think the U.S. cash supply is about $34 trillion. So yeah, the printing of money is probably necessary, but how even though it is expensive to do that, so um, we have the cryptocurrency thing coming out, lots of cryptocurrencies coming out. That's great. That's great. As long as people are respecting ethical business practices and they are um, not breaking any important laws and stuff, laws regarding offense to person and property or theft or stuff like that, then then that's perfectly fine and stuff. Everything else is basically just politics and stuff. People, unfortunately. So, though I would never try to tell somebody to do something to get them in trouble. So a person should know business law before they get into any matters of cryptocurrency and stuff. And they should read the law with regards to currency. Um, can the law be changed? Can that type of a law be changed? Yes, and stuff, given the constraints around that stuff. But laws regarding population can also be addressed too. So if any exists, if they don't exist, maybe they should. So yeah, um, though law is not the topic here, we're talking about something that's on the basis of law and stuff, things regarding capital law and stuff, economics and stuff. So we're at a good, like going back to, we're at a good point in space time where we can actually have a general model, a universal model of economics that relates the quantum scale, the more visible molecular scale, and the the tiny particles and stuff between, like, the realm of uh, classical mechanics and quantum mechanics, just things that have lots of hard to measure variables and stuff, things like just microscopic scale stuff, um, which I should probably add in here because I think it's interesting. It does have a consequence for sure. And we certainly are facing the consequences right now, especially with their role in pathogenic dispersal, and how that's a difficult economic externality, and the role in operational disruptions and stuff like that. Um, yeah. So let me just minimize this. Um, all right. So I made this from scratch and stuff, just starting with different categories and categorical necessities. My mind was just keeping things in hand and applying s- stuff that it already knew. Um, there's definitely an important absolute fact. So, like, this is not for argument and stuff. This is, purely axiomatic. This is a premise thing and stuff. A person cannot disconnect real life from essential matter of truth because existence of clear meaning is built into the universe and stuff. Like, so yeah, that's not a matter of debate. That is a fact that people cannot forget and stuff. Um, and yeah, so if it's hard to see that fact, then I would try to get off of mass media. So here we go. So here we have the quantum and subquantum scale. Not all the processes are here and stuff. There's a lot of processes like such as tunneling and the random appearance of matter from shifting in 0 point energy and stuff like that. There's so many processes. I would love to just, I mean, um, topics. Yeah, so block spheres. decoherence, entanglements, quantum leaps, the emergence of quantum logics and stuff, which is actually more of a mathematical situation. The emergence of time crystals, and their meaning and stuff. Frame dragging and stuff like that. Cold fusions. That has to be understood at the quantum scale. Beta decays and stuff like that. The emergence of condensates, um, nuclear pastas, um, charges, particle charging and stuff, um, quantum decoherence and incoherence and stuff, um, soliton behaviors and stuff like that, time quasi-crystal behaviors. There's of course supermassive black hole activity. I mean, this is a huge bank of energy here. Very important, very important. Um, so so yeah, so here we go. Just starting off with some basics here because I had to do. I was trying to do all this at once, um, and I really want to complete it to have like a kind of enough of a model of everything so everybody understands why certain things need to be a certain way. and so, in the United States. So here we go. So um, it goes from energy release, regardless of what point. Like there's no it can't be presumed that there's a number one starting point and stuff. Like sure, we have ordinal numbers, but it's relating those there to this circumstance is different because we don't know what happened 14 to 15 billion years ago when during the most recent Big Bang. We just don't. So here we go. So goes from quantum massive energy and stuff, meaning energy that is expressible as mass and stuff. They're the same mass. It's just a stabilized form of energy that's hypercondensed, and there's been many proofs and demonstrations of this throughout history. Here we go. Quantum massive decomposition, energy release goes into containment and stuff, which goes to massive composition, which produces a difference in energy and stuff, which it takes you back to quantum massive energy. And then from containment, you have recollection and recycle processing. I'm not sure which direction I was supposed to make this arrow go, but hey. Oh, wait, no, it's bidirectional stuff. So recollection and recycle processing creates containment, and containment goes into recollection and recycle processing and stuff. How do we know that? Because human beings have been making materials all the time. Like, look how this process overall relates to the scale of sensible real life. So duh, like it's a no-brainer. If you're arguing this, you're probably forcing the issue too much. You probably think you studied everything under the sun, or whatever. Yeah, maybe you want to just maybe like pay a bit more attention. I'm not here to sell. I'm not here to sell anything or put you on anything. I mean, this is a course to teach people quality education. So. Um, regardless of what belief system, whatever you think you follow, whatever, this is the science. Too bad. So, now here, all of this aggregates into the subatomic particles, which takes us to the molecular scale, including the atomic components. It goes from atomic mass to massive decomposition, which is fairly scalable from what we see over here with the quantum decomposition. So you see, there's a scale that's happening. It's not a linear scale. It doesn't follow a linear scale. The dynamic geometry of it, just the dynamic emergence of it, is more about a type of loose dynamic procedural generation and stuff. So we're not necessarily giving order to this as much as we are showing how these particle motions do or can happen and stuff. But you can't have particles in the same place at the same time, where and energies cohere with each other and stuff, but they don't replace each other. They don't. So that's one of the boundary limits there. This is why we have particle collisions. So atomic mass and goes into massive decomposition. Atomic or nuclear energy release goes to containment. I mean, this should be bidirectional, actually. It's actually an expression of everything that's going on the quantum scale. So, just make this bidirectional. There we go. Boom. It's bidirectional, scaled up just like this one. It actually is. The way I describe it was incomplete because, well, I only had so much time to make this. So I really hate this little. Okay, okay, that's nice. So, um, the containment goes into work and stuff. Um, it's related to W equals P times D by Brownian motion. Okay, so don't say I made this into a linear scale. I did not. All right. Um, okay, I studied the related subjects here quite extensively. So, um, decay including failure. Yes, decay is extremely important because what are we doing with this massive energy? It went out of hand. It could become 0 point energy and stuff, which is actually would be the next step here. I could even extend this. Uh, when you have a 0 point energy, you have an energy that reads a zero by measure and stuff. The measure, the theoretical mechanism that absolutely determines the energy level of something relatable to the Kelvin scale, which I believe relates to the Joule scale and stuff. That that has to um, be forensically investigated and stuff. Like, okay, how did we get this absence of massive energy and stuff? Where do we get more massive energy? Because remember, this is an economic model and stuff. Economies strongly relate to thermodynamics and stuff. So the circulation of energy is very important. Um, Everything from the exposure to light relates to how quickly people can pay their gas bill or whatever. So this is very important. Um, so we have this waste here which modulates the scarcity. This actually comes from worsened circumstance and stuff because at the molecular scale, it's actually affected by personal or worker action by the people here, which also is affected by the scale of sensible life. These arrows should be bidirectional. Um, so there. Um, these interactive. So people get exposed to chemicals all the time that change how they behave. Like for example, with fentanyl, that's an extremely small molecule. Um, Anthrax is an extremely small particle and stuff. Those tiny things, yeah, they make a big fucking difference. Um, so, uh, so, but oh wait, I get to use profanity. It's my lesson. So great. Da, da, da. Okay, so, and this process here, decay, recollection, recycle processing. This is like a program. This is like a formulaically determined scale from the quantum to subquantum scale. So, and the that understanding that I'm trying to mint the value of understanding this because you know I guess there are rules in how matter can combine and not, which makes sense. You have atomic and molecular orbitals, and you have octet theory and stuff like that. All of that is pretty usable with creating new elements, I would say, because the system has to find its point of stable energy. So once you find the formula for the stable energy of the system, then yeah, bam, you can make whatever elements you need, and then scarcity. Um, as long as enough is invested into science and technology and research and development and stuff, then that's fixable. And so, however, recently we've had cuts of funding to science to that sort of thing, so we might be headed for a bad time. Um, that needs to be addressed as well. Um, so this scales up to the productive scale to cosmological scale by considering. Okay. Oh no. Okay. So yeah, we were in scale of sensible real life and stuff. Then, um, what you can do and not do is regulated by law and stuff. Meaning the law is telling you what you can do or not do based on the penal codes and stuff like that. But you should know the law. It's a U.S. code has about 5,000 laws. You shouldn't cry over it. Read it. Um, read your constitution, stuff like that. You have, I mean, this is a separate issue. Well, law is another lesson, but um, this goes into this leads to employment law and stuff because you need laws, right? So yeah, you're gonna end up needing employment law too. Compulsion and stuff. Uh, Compensation, salary, or wage, which originates from a process of realization of benefit due to a type of minting and stuff, which comes from the payment, which is the movement of the money to the payee, which goes for cost by price, which comes from desire to circumstance or item, which comes related to a massive energy process and stuff, which here is an aggregation of that quantum scale process and stuff that happens from a personal worker, a person or some other kind of worker. You have robotic workers too, and machine workers too, virtual, cyber workers too. Then we have the mass, right here. Here I explain the role of intellect and thinking and stuff in all of this. This is a modification of address, because all of these nodes here, these blips, these are necessary points that I'm talking about. So the compulsion to work is actually related to intellect, and so how your intellect is, the manner of intellect you have determines how you work and stuff, deterministically and stuff. Like maybe one day later, a person can do something that's completely unrelated to what they're doing, but these are the requirements. Okay. Anybody who says you can't do something because of some other factor and stuff is just being stupid. They're just stupid people. Okay. Because this is the chain that we're dealing with here. Because we have the chemical expenditure factor and stuff. With enough treatment of the right the right medical intervention stuff, a person can do a lot of stuff. This is why we have vocational rehabilitation methods and stuff in the U.S. economy. Okay, there's a lot of people you can thank for that, from the scientists to the police officers to the military veterans who fought for requisitions and stuff like that. So many things. Hats off to them. I'm not wearing a hat right now, but I should be wearing my yarmulke. But anyway, so and what modifies this information very well is having quality education, private or personal study, school courses at a high quality and stuff. I talked about what an ideal education system should have and stuff. That's what the United States needs to the greatest extent possible and stuff, because we could be stuck in this grim trigger situation. Brain activity, blah blah blah, brainwaves, chemical expense caused by price, payment, currency. Yeah, this is actually, it just makes perfect sense. It's not only logical, it's grounded. You see? It's grounded. And maybe it's not complete, but it's grounded. Maybe I'm only showing you 20 chess pieces on the board when there's 60, but hey, they're there. So however, when you have things like political operations, you get imprecise actions. And those lead to damages, those lead to worsened circumstance, which leads to waste and stuff. This is basically where the economy of degeneration happens, the sub-economy of degeneration happens. So this is where this is basically the work of the jerks and idiots of society. These are the people that steal, beat people up and stuff that when they don't deserve it, blah blah blah. The people that force the issue a little bit too crazy, too crazily. And cross product. So here, going up to scale, we're going to the cosmological or astral scale and stuff, the aggregations of universes, basically, a multiversal scale and stuff beyond the human record, basically going into the master records of just everything. A massive, basically a massive reality, actuality on a scale that is only understood in terms of the largest of possible quantities. Quantities that are limited by the massive energy in all of actuality, the whole, multiverses and other dimensions and stuff, like basically places that are accessible through um, massive energy portals, like wormholes and stuff like that. You know, um, so here it has products and byproducts because things happen there. If everything was still, then it's basically 0 point energy. It doesn't exist and stuff. And if that doesn't exist, well, then you know then where all the sensible real life's add up to, huh? By negating the cosmological or astral scale and stuff, you're um you're negating real life. It means you're negating the molecular scale, which means you're negating the quantum and subquantum scale. And so we'll talk about subquantum stuff because that's at the opposite end of the spectrum of when it comes to, um, you know, the subquantum or the divine scale. The divine scale is basically, yeah, this is where multiple realities happen and stuff. But this cosmological scale, this is just one reality. And scaled up laws and nodular parallel order, generally the same as sensible real life. Yeah, these are basically how the Brownian motion laws scale up. And Brownian motion is, mathematically perfect. Yeah. Um, so you aggregate all of this, you have the arrow here of scale, and then that goes to, just how different realities relate. This is basically your heavens, or wherever, whatever you want to call it. You can call it heaven. You can call it the scale of the most superior entities of existence. However you want to term it, it's the same. It's by path of reference. It's the same thing. Um, so here you have, like, your heaven. You have your jhana. You have your Elysium and stuff. Many civilizations throughout history have talked about this. Um, and then, yeah, there you go. And here we go. So, yeah, so regardless of what you believe regarding religion or irreligion and stuff, this is this is a necessary terminus because massive energies aggregate. Their aggregation is massive energy. My smartphone has molecules that aggregate to bigger things, and my smartphone aggregates with my room, which aggregates with the house, which aggregates with my home state, which aggregates to my country, and so on. It's just it all exists. So, um, and I think I wrote this here because I never really meant to show this to anybody, but it's an important lesson. Yeah. These are all thoughts I wrote here. Um, yeah, so if there is any type of objective morality, it's going to come from the objective principles that arise from here and stuff. This is why we have law and order and stuff. Once you take out this and stuff, you get stuff out of hand. You get stuff out of hand really quick, unmanageable stuff, um, meaning a total waste of power. But yeah, this is as much time as I can afford to give on this matter. I have other work to do.